Hello and welcome to the DILAX Lab. Thank you for joining us today from all over the world. This episode will be about using open data for customer satisfaction, lessons learned from Helsinki. Before we start, just a few words on what you can expect from the upcoming interview. In the DILAX Lab, we offer a platform to professionals and anyone interested in the topics around city development, public transport, and the retail sector. We invite experts from those fields to the DILAX Lab and discuss exciting projects, trends, and share opinions on how data can make cities more enjoyable and traveling more convenient. DILAX is passionate about data, and we believe in local data for better cities. My name is Elena Kühnapfel, and I'm sales manager for the Nordics and UK market at DILAX. For the upcoming interview, I'm thrilled to welcome a very special guest from Finland. A warm welcome to Markku Huotari, who's working for the Helsinki Public Transport Authority, HSL. Welcome and terve, Markku. Thank you for taking the time today.
Thank you for having me.
Markku, would you mind telling our audience some key facts about HSL so that we get a better understanding of the scope and reach of your work?
Yes. The Helsinki Region Transport, or HSL that we have in Finland, plans and organizes the public transport in the Helsinki region. And we also procure the services that are then run by operators. And we also take care of the ticketing system, ticket inspections, organize marketing and customer information and that kind of stuff. And we have 9 member municipalities that own and run our operations, and roughly 50% of our funding comes from ticket revenues, and the other half comes from these member municipalities. And the population in the area is around 1.3 million people. And to give an idea of the volume of the transportation, we have roughly around 400 million boardings yearly. That was the figure from 2019, was the last pre-corona normal year, so to say. And we
also have 5 modes of transport in the area: train, tram, bus, metro, and ferry. And then also in 3 cities, the major cities, we have a city bike system that the cities themselves own, but we help them with marketing and customer information. And the employees, the number of employees in HSL is 430.
Wow, thank you very much. That's a lot, especially the 400 million boardings caught my interest. That's a lot to handle. So as we will see, your work has a great reach, not only across the country, but even beyond Finland's borders. And for the audience, as you probably know, today's topic will be on using open data for customer satisfaction, lessons learned from Helsinki. And for this, Markku will give us a practical insight into the pioneer work he is doing already for many years in the field of generating and using open data for customer-oriented applications. And for this, one goal is to improve customer satisfaction in public transport. So before we start, just a few words on the agenda. We will finish in approximately 30 minutes, and you are warmly invited to share the discussion and send us either your questions in the chat box, or you can write us an email to webinar@dilax.com. We will include your questions at the end of the discussion, and in case we cannot answer them right away, we will get in touch with you afterwards. So feel warmly invited to join our discussion on how traffic planning and customer satisfaction can be improved by using open data. So, Markku, you are working as GIS specialist, which stands for Geographic Information Systems. And this means in your role as GIS specialist, you develop and manage geographic information systems. Could you please describe your work as GIS specialist a bit more? And could you tell our audience what your daily business looks like?
Yes, the idea is to manage and coordinate these GIS activities, or you can also call it spatial data, geographical information. I participate in different GIS-related development projects that we might have, and also take care of the acquisition and distribution of our GIS software. There are special software to take care of these kind of data, and then also take care of the acquisition and distribution of the data distribution of the GIS data. We also give GIS support and do some data processing and visualization as well. But as we have limited resources, this is something that we try to minimize and automate things. And we have at the moment 2 full-time GIS specialists and many others working in the field of GIS part-time or along with other duties, such as different public transport planners, data analysts, and different developers working in our projects. So those are our internal customers, in addition to the external ones that we have that use our data or our softwares or applications.
Okay, interesting. Sorry for the short technical interruption, but Markku's work is definitely worth a dramatic pause. So thanks to that, and as I understand it, geodata can also be combined with other relevant data, such as traffic, company, or market data. So why, Markku, do you think geodata is important for a public transport company?
I think location is the key component to planning public transport. It's important to know where your customers are, where they want to go, what areas they're interested in. When you know the answer to these questions, then you know where to plan your routes, where to place your service points, stops or park and ride sites or vending machines or whatever you would like to place. So I see the planning process as a process of matching the data of your services to the data of the customers. And the more accurate the data is, the better you can serve the customers. And that's what we try to do at HSL ourselves. We have recently renewed our website and our journey planner and introduced an external app that contains a mobile ticket and also integrated journey planner functionality. So,
well, on this end, I guess you are definitely doing something right. I wanted to congratulate you on being the happiest nation worldwide, which was recently in the news. So with this, Finland being ranked again as number 1 as the happiest nation worldwide, one indicator also is how well countries are doing on offering public services. So if you ask me, Finland is definitely doing something right. So let's investigate what we can learn from Helsinki's approach, especially with regard to open data and how they improve and build customer-oriented services for public transport. Looking at HSL, Markku, what kind of data are you precisely collecting?
Yes, thanks for asking. If we speak of services, then we have the movement of vehicles or high frequency positioning, as we tend to call it. It doesn't just include the location, but also events like arriving at stops, leaving stops, opening doors, closing doors. Then also we collect the status of the city bike stations, how many bikes there are available, and also the status of some of our park and ride sites that requires some infrastructure on site. So that isn't available for all of our sites. And then if we speak of customer data, the obvious purchases of tickets that can be via the travel card or the app that I mentioned, or via a vending machine or service point or whatever. Then we also collect city bike usage, the travels of the bikes, the amounts and the destination and origin. And we also have some of the customer preferences that they have expressed when they use our journey planner. For instance, they can enter some favorite points that they home and where they live and where they work and that kind of stuff. And then we have the occupancy of the vehicles. We collect the boardings from the travel cards. We don't have a check-in, check-out system in the region, so we just get the boardings from this system. And then we have also, in some vehicles, this passenger counting equipment, and this number of these devices is slowly increasing, as we currently have an agreement that force the new operators to take care of these equipment in the new buses. So that will take around roughly maybe 7 to 10 years before the whole fleet is renewed and we have this full coverage on these equipments. But in the meantime, we need to get the additional information, and this we do through surveys and interviews also as well. And I mentioned the app. Through this we have introduced a new service, or that we call Travel Sense, that records the trip chains from the users when they have approved. That's very important that they approve. And then we use this information when we plan the public transport, so it helps us a lot. And also in this app we have also one new thing coming up. It's under development. It's a survey tool that also could implement into the app and enable location-based or situation-based surveys for customers, and also crowdsource the quality assessment to vehicles. So it's very lots of these data that we collect. Not all of them are, of course, open, that you can understand, as there are privacy issues, but most of them are open.
Yeah, that's definitely a big variety, and seems like we have similar passions when it comes to working and generating data. I find it astonishing to hear that you put so much work into the HSL app in particular, like asking customers about their favorite places and alike. And as you mentioned, there are also many ways to count passenger data and passenger data, such as indications from changes in vehicle weight, manual countings, surveys, and of course automatic passenger counting systems, APC. And from those different sets of data, APC are most accurate. They are not only reliable, but also with a high accuracy. And last but not least, you generate your very own set of local data. So you know exactly where your passengers are moving, what they are bringing along, like bikes, and much more. So I think this goes hand in hand when you want to understand travel behavior and plan traffic routes accordingly. So now that you gather a lot of data about the movements of vehicles and movements of passengers, what are you precisely learning from the data, and how are you applying this knowledge back to your strategy? Yeah,
our strategy is much focused on the customer. It's It's very much in the focus. And we monitor the customer satisfaction on a regular basis. This data is also open, and we also compare ourselves regarding customer satisfaction to other public transport authorities. And what we do with the data, we can monitor the types of vehicles being used. If we speak of the vehicle location data, for instance, the types of vehicle being used, there might be some requirements of the agreements to use, for instance, low floor buses. Or then we can also monitor the service reliability and the accuracy and the traffic fluidity. And the vehicle location data is also used in customer service situations, and when we investigate service disturbances, and when sanctioning or giving bonus to operators for, when we have some agreements that a certain number of or share of buses should be on time, so there are some limits on that side. So, and also the location data can also, of course, be used as the base for the next season timetable planning to modify it. So that's also one. And these kind of real-time monitoring and performance indicator systems is something that we constantly working on developing.
And you are doing pretty good on that. So, and on another note, when we prepared for this session, you told us about an open source journey planner app which you developed. This app is called DigiTransit, and it has become somewhat famous around Europe, and several other cities have adopted this app into their own services. So could you please explain to us in a few sentences what DigiTransit is about and why you think it has become so popular?
Yes, it's an open source, as you said, journey planner that HSL and two domestic partners developed. And actually, well, I would say it's more of a journey planner built on top of another journey planner that we used. It's a component called Open Trip Planner. Its APIs and routing functionalities, and actually DigiTransit is more of the UI, so to say, on top of that. So, but well, that's the way you work with open source software. You take some components and you build on top of that and create an app of that. And so the popularity I would say, it's open source, it's easy to start using. And on the data side, it's based on OpenStreetMap, which is a global data set. So it's very easy to localize when you everywhere in the world. And then the APIs that it's produced, it's also open. So the developers like that too, and so it creates kind of an ecosystem of apps around it. And well, that's good for us. We don't necessarily need our customers to use our API, our applications or journey planners. The main idea is that they get the data or information somehow.
Brilliant. So if I understand you correctly, the reason why other companies or cities use DigiTransit is because it is openly available. And especially at times of competition and stricter data privacy regulation, I wonder, why is that? What were the reasons for Helsinki to decide and make this data openly available?
Yeah. This decision goes back some 7 or 8 years back, I think, when we had our old journey planner. It wasn't open, it was proprietary, so it was provided from a company. So it was at the end of its life cycle, and we were thinking that something would need to be done with this journey planner anyhow if it would cope with, for instance, the real-time information. As such, it wouldn't have managed that. So it was an opportunity to try something new. And at that time, I don't actually know where the actual idea came from, but there came an idea that we could try something new, and heard of a project called Code for Europe, that the idea was to introduce new ideas, technologies, and methods to governmental organizations. And there was a organization that's still working in the Helsinki area called Forum Virium. It's an innovation company owned by the city of Helsinki, and through them they hired 2 developers, and one of these were placed in HSL, the other one in the Helsinki city. And this developer started working on a prototype for the new journey planner. The code name, I think, was HSL Navigator, and well, it turned out pretty good. And actually, a few years later, we hired this guy to HSL.
Well, I think this was a wise decision, and I'm also glad to hear that you decided in favor of this open data approach back in the days. That's truly a success story to tell. So I wonder, do you have knowledge on other projects or other adaptations of DigiTransit?
Yes, as I said, we started off with the 2 domestic partners. The other one was the Finnish Transport Agency that created a national journey planner for Finland. And the other one was Valtti. It's the national travel card system in Finland. And via this collaboration, the journey planner is also used in 10 about cities around in Finland. And beside these, I know of 3 journey planners in Germany under the DigiTransit. And Herrenberg, I think it's the one that has gone furthest of those. The other 2 are Ulm and Münster. But yeah, and Herrenberg, it's more or less the official journey planner now. And also in Italy, Turin uses DigiTransit. And in Estonia, the local road administration has created the national journey planner on top of DigiTransit. And a few years back, also the Norwegian government-owned N2 created a national journey planner based on DigiTransit. But well, later they changed as I said, DigiTransit is kind of the user interface, but they replaced it with their own, but they still use the same core as we do, the OpenTrip Planner. So we collaborate on a different level with those guys, and they have contributed very much to this OpenTrip Planner, so it helps us as well.
Seems like this is almost an advertisement for DigiTransit and for you, so that if any other municipality or city is interested, it is openly available, and here's the person to talk to about this. So with this, would you say that this open data approach has helped you at HSL to develop apps and services faster?
Definitely. We get ideas from, first of all, the API users, valuable feedback on ideas, and to speed this process up, we also organize hackathons and events and competitions even to get new ideas. And also, of course, these other collaborations in the other countries also we get ideas from that as well, and even contributions to source code.
Okay, so be it based on hackathons or in your very own opinion, and if you look into the future, what would you like to improve about DigiTransit?
Well, one thing comes to mind that has been on the agenda a long time, both on the open data side, but it's the occupancy data that could be very useful at the moment. For instance, when there's talks about maybe limiting the access to vehicles. So, but well, as I said, that's a long process for us to replace the equipment to. But other things, maybe better locationing capabilities, both to locate the person inside the bus, but also when the bus goes into areas with no GPS connection. This first thing I mentioned, this person thing, we have development on this as we speak. We have installed Bluetooth beacons, and we can use these to locate, determine whether a certain person is on this vehicle, and then give him or her more relevant information regarding that trip in particular. So maybe these kind of things.
Well, and if I understand you correctly, the current gap of not knowing exactly on the occupancy of the vehicles will, as you mentioned earlier, shortly be closed with further equipment of APC systems in your vehicles. So I think this is a good approach, saying this from a DILAX perspective. And also, thank you very much for this outlook. Looking at the time, it is already time to wrap up this discussion. So let me quickly summarize the key points we mentioned before we turn to some questions from the audience. So what we heard today is that Helsinki is very far, if not leading worldwide, with the usage of open data to increase customer satisfaction in public transport. HSL, and in particular Markku, is doing a great work at generating and using this open data. The strategy is pretty clear: building applications with a crowdsourcing approach. And two outcomes are, we just briefly touched this, one is OpenStreetMap and the Journey Planner app DigiTransit. So both are adapted at several other destinations way beyond Finland's borders, and the aim is to improve customer satisfaction in public transport. And with the geodata, HSL can learn more about where passengers are going and about their travel behavior. And if you ask me, we see a trend that working with open data is becoming more popular among other public transport authorities and municipalities. So finally, and for the future, I think it will be interesting to enrich the existing data with occupancy data, as you mentioned, to adapt public transport services as needed. And to do this, automatic passenger counting information can be generated directly from the vehicles, and this will be a very reliable source of data. So, turning to questions from the audience, Markku, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. I have one special question for you, which is, how do you do the visualization of the data?
Visualization in terms of if we speak of the location data from the vehicles, then we have a special app. It's also open source that we developed for this. It's called Transit Log, and it's at the moment it's used internally, but I think if you Google, you can find it. It's openly available, and we haven't tried to hide it. But yeah, it's very, very complex. So that's why we haven't sort of announced it publicly. But that's one tool.
Wonderful. Thank you for the insight. And then the last question from the audience. You mentioned that you have decided to use OpenStreetMap within your journey planner. And the question is, could you describe what distinguishes OpenStreetMap from other map sources that are commonly used, and how did this impact your service?
Yes, the big difference is that it's crowdsourced. It's so normal data sets they tend to have one owner, but OpenStreetMap is owned by everybody. Everybody can contribute, and no one owns the data, so it's very flexible. We can update it fast, load it into our system, and also the data model itself, it's very flexible as well. So it's very versatile for our needs. Before, in the old journey planner, we had different data sets for the road network, different data sets for the background map, and different data sets, for instance, for the POI or point of interest, like schools, hospitals and such. Now all in one in this OpenStreetMap. So one new thing that we have had to learn is how to work with these new environment, how to work with collaborate with the community, and that's a learning process still. So we try to arrange different events and kind of promote the idea that everybody can contribute. Yes.
And we are very curious to observe your next steps. So thank you very much for the answer. And also thank you, Markku, and thank you for everyone for listening to this very insightful discussion. If you would like to get in touch, or if you have questions to Markku or us, feel free to write us an email to webinar@dilax.com. And as we are now coming to an end, I would also like to invite you to follow DILAX Intercom on LinkedIn. On our LinkedIn page, we share industry-specific information, and we are also there to inform you about new features and products. And in fact, we have some exciting news to share with you in the next couple of days, so it's worth to follow us on LinkedIn. The next DILAX Lab will take place on May 6th. And in addition, all previous sessions can be accessed free of charge and on demand on our website. Finally, we also appreciate your feedback on how you liked today's session. For this, there will be a short survey sent to you after this session, so we appreciate your feedback and opinion. Then, I guess it's time to wrap up. I wish you a nice afternoon, and I hope to see you again next time in May. So thank you, Markku, for joining us today, and goodbye and Näkemiin from Berlin.
Thank you.